Imagine you walk into a small room. In the middle of the room, a man slowly swings a pocket watch. Look at the watch. Relax. You're getting sleepy. Suddenly someone clucks like a chicken. Another person starts laughing uncontrollably. You've probably seen something like this before. Stage hypnosis. But here's the real question. Can hypnosis actually control your mind? Or is it just a performance? The answer is stranger than most people think. And it begins more than 200 years ago. In the late 1700s, a doctor named Franz Anton Mesmer became one of the most famous men in Europe. People traveled from all over just to see him. In a large room, patients sat around a strange wooden tub filled with water and metal rods. Mesmer slowly walked between them, waving his hands in the air. Some patients suddenly began shaking. Others fell into dramatic emotional fits. Mesmer claimed something incredible. He believed an invisible magnetic fluid flowed through all living beings. When this energy became disturbed, people became sick. But Mesmer said he could restore the flow. And when that happened, the body would heal itself. For a while, Europe was fascinated by this idea, but not everyone believed him. Even the French king began hearing stories about Mesmer's strange healing sessions. The king started wondering whether this was real medicine or simply a clever show. So in 1784, he ordered an official investigation. A group of scientists was asked to test Mesmer's mysterious treatment. Among them was one of the most famous thinkers of the time, Benjamin Franklin. Instead of simply watching Mesmer perform, the scientists designed a clever experiment. What they created became one of the first placebo experiments in scientific history. Some participants were told they were receiving Mesmer's magnetic treatment, even though nothing actually happened. Other participants were secretly exposed to the supposed magnetic object, but were told nothing about it. Then the scientists watched the reactions. The results were surprising. People who believed they were being treated showed strong reactions. They reported sensations and emotional responses. Some even fainted. But the people who were actually exposed to the magnetic treatment without knowing it felt nothing at all. The scientists reached a shocking conclusion. The effects were not caused by magnetic energy. They were caused by the participants' own imagination and expectations. Mesmer eventually disappeared from the spotlight. But the strange phenomenon he revealed did not disappear. Several decades later, a Scottish surgeon named James Braid became interested in these mysterious reactions. But Braid did not believe in magnetic fluids. Instead, he noticed something different. When people focused their attention intensely and listened to strong suggestions, their mental state began to change. They became extremely focused and deeply absorbed in the experience, almost like they were dreaming while still awake. Braid gave this mental state a new name: hypnosis. At first, many people believed hypnosis was a type of sleep or trance, but modern psychology now understands it differently. Hypnosis is not magic, and it is not mind control. Instead, it is a set of psychological techniques based on suggestion and focused attention. But here is something even more interesting. Suggestions already influence us in everyday life. Imagine you go to the doctor because you feel pain. The doctor gives you a pill and says, "This should help you feel better." Sometimes people begin feeling relief even before the medicine fully works. Why does this happen? Because the brain expects improvement. This phenomenon is called the placebo effect. Expectations can change how your body experiences symptoms. Hypnosis works in a similar way, but the suggestions are more focused and structured. Instead of casual reassurance, hypnosis uses guided attention and carefully delivered suggestions to influence perception and experience. A typical hypnosis session usually begins with something called hypnotic induction. During this stage, the therapist guides the person to focus on simple tasks. They might ask the person to breathe slowly, relax different muscles, or concentrate on a specific sensation. The goal is to narrow the person's attention. When attention becomes highly focused, the mind often becomes more open to suggestion. After induction comes the suggestion phase. The therapist might say something like, "As you continue breathing calmly, you may notice your arm feeling lighter." Or, "The discomfort in your shoulder may begin fading into the background." Notice something important. These suggestions are not commands. They are invitations to experience something differently. The person is encouraged to observe what happens, rather than force a response. Finally, the session ends with something called de-induction, where the therapist gradually guides the person back to full awareness. The eyes open, the body becomes alert again, and the session ends. But the big question remains: does hypnosis actually work? Researchers have discovered that people respond to hypnosis very differently. Most people show a moderate response to suggestions, but a small group of individuals are extremely responsive, while another small group barely responds at all. This ability is called hypnotizability. Interestingly, this trait tends to remain fairly stable throughout a person's life. Some people naturally respond more strongly to suggestion than others. Scientists have noticed that highly hypnotizable individuals often share certain traits. They tend to have vivid imaginations, strong ability to focus, and a tendency to become deeply absorbed in activities such as reading or watching movies. They may also report unusual perceptual experiences more often than others. But the most fascinating discovery comes from brain research. When hypnosis truly works, the brain does not behave like someone pretending. Instead, it behaves much more like someone genuinely experiencing something real. And this discovery opened the door to some surprising medical possibilities. But what hypnosis can actually do might surprise you even more. But here is where hypnosis becomes truly fascinating. For a long time, scientists had a simple question. When people respond to hypnotic suggestions, are they just pretending? Or does something real actually happen inside the brain? To find out, researchers designed a strange experiment. Participants who were highly responsive to hypnosis were placed inside brain scanners. While in hypnosis, they were given an unusual suggestion. The researchers told them they would begin to see objects that were not actually present. Maybe a shape. Maybe a color. Maybe a simple object floating in front of them. In reality, nothing appeared. But many participants reported that they could clearly see the object. Now here is the surprising part. Scientists compared the brain activity during this experience with normal imagination. If the participants were only pretending, the brain patterns would look like imagination. But they didn't. Instead, the brain activity looked much closer to real perception. In other words, the brain reacted almost as if the object truly existed. This suggests something remarkable. Under the right conditions, suggestion can actually change how the brain processes reality. And that discovery made researchers wonder about something even bigger. Could hypnosis actually help people medically? One of the most surprising uses of hypnosis is pain control. Think about what pain really is. Pain is not just a signal from the body. It is also an experience created by the brain. Researchers decided to test whether hypnotic suggestions could influence this experience. In some studies, patients preparing for surgery were guided through hypnosis before the procedure. During hypnosis, they were given suggestions that the surgical area would feel numb and distant. They were encouraged to imagine the pain fading away like background noise. After surgery, researchers asked the patients how much pain they felt. The results were surprising. Patients who responded well to hypnosis reported less pain than expected. Even more interesting, many of them needed less opioid medication afterward. This does not mean hypnosis replaces anesthesia or medical treatment. But it shows something powerful. The way the brain interprets pain can change depending on attention, expectation, and suggestion. And this discovery opened another unexpected possibility. Now imagine someone recovering from a brain injury. One common problem after brain trauma is difficulty with working memory. Working memory is the mental ability that allows you to hold information for a short time. For example, remembering a phone number long enough to dial it, or repeating a sequence of numbers someone just told you. Many brain injury patients believe their memory is permanently damaged. That belief alone can make their performance worse. Researchers wondered if hypnosis could help change this expectation. In some experiments, patients were guided through hypnosis and given suggestions like, "Your memory is becoming clearer," or "You can easily hold information in your mind." After these sessions, some patients showed improved performance in memory tasks. Not because hypnosis magically repaired their brain, but because the suggestions reduced the mental barrier created by doubt and anxiety. Sometimes the brain works better when the mind stops expecting failure. Hypnosis has also been studied as a tool for changing habits. One common example is smoking. Many smokers genuinely want to quit, but breaking the habit can be extremely difficult. Nicotine addiction involves both physical dependence and mental patterns. Hypnosis focuses on the psychological side of the habit. During hypnosis, a therapist might guide someone to imagine cigarettes becoming unpleasant. The smell becomes irritating. The taste becomes bitter. Clean air feels better than smoke. For some people, these suggestions can shift how they think about smoking. Studies suggest that in certain situations, hypnosis can be about as effective as some traditional treatments, such as counseling or structured behavior programs. But the results vary greatly between individuals. Hypnosis is not a universal solution. For some people, it works surprisingly well. For others, the effects are small. But here is the part that most people misunderstand about hypnosis. It cannot force someone to do something completely against their values, which means those dramatic stage hypnosis shows might not be what they seem. So what is actually happening on stage? Stage hypnosis often gives the impression that people completely lose control of their actions. But psychological research suggests something different. In many stage shows, participants are volunteers who are already open to the experience. They are often motivated to entertain the audience and cooperate with the hypnotist. Social pressure also plays a role. When people stand on stage in front of a crowd, they may feel encouraged to follow the suggestions and play along with the performance. Some participants may indeed enter a hypnotic state. Others may simply exaggerate their reactions. In other words, stage hypnosis is partly psychology, partly performance. But that does not mean hypnosis itself is fake. It simply means the reality is more complex than the show. Despite its fascinating effects, hypnosis also has clear limits. It is not a magical cure. Hypnosis has shown promise for helping with anxiety, stress, pain management, and certain behavioral changes. But there is very little evidence that hypnosis can treat severe psychiatric conditions such as schizophrenia. Important because popular media often exaggerates what hypnosis can do. In reality, hypnosis is simply a psychological tool. A technique that uses attention, expectation, and suggestion to influence how people experience certain sensations or thoughts. For some individuals, it works surprisingly well. For others, it produces only mild effects. More than 2 centuries ago, Mesmer believed he had discovered a mysterious magnetic force flowing through the body. But the real force behind hypnosis was never magnetism. It was something much more familiar: the human mind itself. Your expectations shape what you notice. Your focus changes how you experience sensations. Your beliefs can influence how your brain interprets reality. Hypnosis simply reveals how powerful these mental processes can be. And here is one final thought. If suggestions can influence people this strongly during hypnosis, how often might suggestions influence us in everyday life? Advertising, social pressure, authority figures, and even our own inner thoughts constantly shape the way we see the world. So the real question might not be whether hypnosis works. The real question is how often our minds are already responding to invisible suggestions without us even realizing it. What do you think about hypnosis? Have you ever experienced something similar? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy exploring the science behind human behavior and emotional intelligence, consider subscribing to the Thinking Mind Lab for more videos that reveal how the mind really works.